Khan here for Seconds Out with the one and only, the incomparable Ade Oladipo. Ade, how are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Look at the weather. I mean, look where we are, really. This isn't even work, is it? We're out here. We just saw Floyd weigh in. Did you see how many people just walked with him to the weigh-in? I mean, I get it, Floyd, but the bill alone, that's the first thing I thought when I saw. I didn't think, why do you need that many security guards? I was like, how much does it cost to fly all those guys out? That's like one plane of people. And I'm like, you don't need to do it. But look, it's great to see Floyd. It's still a weird fight, isn't it, Floyd, Deji? But look, we're all here for it. It should be an interesting event. Let's just say that. We've got some sort of quote-unquote YouTube fights, but we've also got some real fights as well. Delphine Pursoon is a real fighter. Hardy Ben's here against Anwar. That's a real fight as well. Tommy Fury versus Paul Bamba. Is that a real fight? I guess it is, right? Two real fighters. So it's an interesting mix of crossover boxing and real boxing, so it should be fun.
We've seen Floyd Mayweather, his career 50-0, and then in these exhibitions, just being a little bit off the pace than he has been before, getting caught with a few shots. With that said, do you expect maybe not in this fight, potentially in this fight, but down the line with his exhibitions, him getting caught a bit more, and maybe in this fight, Deji causing a few surprises?
It's interesting. I was going to ask him that question, but we didn't get to interview him because obviously they took him away very quickly. I was going to ask, what's the limit of this? Because he said he's not going to fight boxers. So, like Ricky Hatton, he said he's not going to do that. The Amir Khans. So what is the limit? Would he go Jake Paul? Would he go KSI? Guys that might cause him problems because, look, as good as Floyd is, he is 45. He doesn't take the sport serious anymore. Yeah, he's in shape, but he's not like he's out here sparring every week. So I don't know with Floyd. Look, if he turns up on Deji, he can get Deji out there in the first round with a body shot immediately. Floyd's that good. But if he's not taking it seriously, Deji's probably a bit bigger. He's got youth on his side. I think Deji could get to the third round. Look, by the way, I'm not saying Deji causes him any problems. Floyd will destroy him, but I think Deji can make it interesting for a couple of rounds. And then Floyd will do what Floyd does and just stop him. Have you not noticed anyone that hits Floyd in the exhibitions, it almost pisses him off? Pardon my French, sorry. And he destroys them. He gets angry. So if Deji tries to hit him, and he does, good luck, Deji.
One of the biggest fights that's been hankered for within the YouTube boxing scene is Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul. It was going to happen. It didn't happen. It might happen now, as sources are saying. Do you think we see it?
Yeah, 100%. Jake Paul was here for that. Jake Paul's not here just to, meet people and say hi, fight, hello. He's here to maybe do or start negotiations again with Tommy Fury. Obviously, Tommy's got this issue where he can't go to America. So maybe they're scouting something here. Maybe they're kind of seeing what money's available here for them to do it. But if you are Jake Paul, you've got to look at realistic opponents. There's Nate Diaz, Andrew Tate maybe, I don't know. I see he's here as well. KSI is not ready for that fight yet. Tommy's the one. Tommy's the one. You can still sell it. People are interested in it. So it makes sense, I think, to do Tommy Fury, Jake Paul. And I guess that's a big-ish fight. I think it's a big fight. Let's see how good Tommy looks tomorrow. Because I'm still not quite sure if Tommy has a real boxer. So it'll be interesting to see how he looks tomorrow. Jake, though, I feel like I'm more convinced with Jake as a boxer than I am with Tommy, which might sound strange. Jake looks like he can fight. Really good hands. I want to see what Tommy looks like tomorrow, but I like it. Both of them are around the same size. I've interviewed both. They're probably around the same height as well. So weight-wise, it makes sense. Both good age, whereas Jake fighting Anderson, people were saying he's nearly 50. That didn't make sense. So look, there's no excuses. You're fighting someone that's live and fresh and young and hungry, so hopefully it can happen for the YouTube scene.
Away from this, a fighter that you keep a keen eye on, amongst others, is Anthony Joshua. He's now said he's a free spirit in terms of his approach to coaching, and he'd like to go to a number of coaches, like he did before he settled on Robert Garcia, and take a bit from them. What do you think of that approach with AJ now after the back of the Usyk loss?
AJ's also said, I don't think you get to a stage with a fighter. He's had a lot of fights. I think Bernard Hopkins said this years ago, where you don't necessarily need a trainer. AJ does, though. AJ needs a full-time trainer, not going and taking styles and advice from different people. Stick with Robert Garcia. Unless there's something going on behind the scenes, aside from training that we don't know about, maybe it wasn't a right fit mentally, emotionally for both. If it's a training issue, you got to stick with him, because I thought, and look, AJ got beat by Usyk fair and square, but I thought AJ looked better against Usyk. I thought he turned it up when he needed to turn it up, and he's not fighting Usyk next. So look, whoever he fights is going to be below Usyk. So I think stick with Robert Garcia, do a long camp. AJ should be in California right now with Robert, just soaking up that information. How many world champions has Robert trained? So the idea of going to different train, I don't quite understand it. But look, I don't control AJ's life. I don't dictate what AJ does. It's one career. It's a dangerous career. So if he thinks that's right for him, then I guess it is. But for me, he's got to stick with Robert Garcia, become the best AJ we can see. Robert Garcia is a very attack-minded coach as well. It just works for AJ. So I don't understand what's going on. But for AJ to say that, it's obviously that means him and Robert have severed ties. That means it's not happening, but I think it's a mistake. I heard about Roy Jones Jr. and other trainers. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me.
A lot of people make a mention about the mentality of fighters, especially AJ, considering what happened after that fight with Usyk. But you're someone who's been up and close with him. Do you see anything different when you speak to him, when you look into his eyes, in his mannerisms, in terms of him as a fighter, in his mentality when you're up close and personal with him?
Not really. It actually seems, believe it or not, like a weight's been lifted off his shoulders. Remember, AJ's had world title fights back-to-back now since Charles Martin. When was that? I don't know how many years ago that was. So it's been back-to-back title fights, back-to-back big fights. It's not saying that AJ's next fight won't be big, because it will be. But I do feel there's a bit of a, it's done now. We can almost have an easier fight, if you like. It's not going to be Usyk next. So I think mentally he seems in a good place. Obviously, look, we all saw what happened after the Usyk fight, and maybe he just needed to let that out. Maybe it's a case of I needed to vent, I needed to let that out, because AJ's always been Mr. Perfect, right? So, he seems like he's in a good space. I do think there are big decisions he needs to make coming up. Obviously, who's he going to fight next, who the trainer's going to be. But apart from that, he seems cool. He's out here, he's enjoying the weather. Hopefully we chat to him and see him tomorrow. Hopefully you guys get a few minutes with him as well. But he seems like he's in a good space.
A couple of final things I want to get your thoughts on. As an interviewer yourself, I wonder what you thought of, if you've seen it, that interview, I think his name is Rob Moore, with Chris Eubank Sr. Yeah. Long interview where we saw Chris Eubank Sr. be bizarre. He's very much eccentric at the best of times anyway, but this was a little bit of a different feel. What was your feeling watching that interview, if you saw it? It
was quite tough to watch, if I'm honest with you. I thought the first few minutes were like, okay, this is Eubank doing what Eubank does. And then it got to a stage where obviously you clearly see someone's emotionally not in the right place right now. Mentally maybe not in the right place right now. And I feel like, look, I get that guy's going to make monetization out of it and it's going to go, but you don't put that up. You maybe have a word of Eubank and, maybe say, okay, look, maybe we don't. Because clearly you're not showing a side of you that maybe you want the people to see. And I thought it was rude for his interview. Honestly, look, I get it, right? We're all in the same kind of game of, it's a good interview and you've got to put it up, but maybe you do think, why? It was tough to watch. But Eubank's been through a lot in the last few months. Obviously, the death of his son, what happened with Eubank in bed, and everyone putting a microphone in his mouth. Everyone wanted a piece of Eubank right now, but yeah, it was tough to watch. It was a very, very tough watch. And look, he's eccentric anyway. So for us to not be happy with that interview, that shows how far it's gone. Because he can go quite far naturally. But that went too far for me. So yeah, I didn't enjoy watching it.
This interview is going quite well, but I might turn off the camera and you might end up calling me a bold so-and-so, which was what True Geordie was in the end of when he interviewed Tyson Fury. Did you watch that one as well? What did you think of that one too?
Yeah, we'll be okay with keeping the camera on. I did a video for it on my own channel saying that's kind of what happens, and you know this, and you probably won't be able to say it, but you know this. These fighters are like this. If you push them, because everyone watches your videos and other YouTube channels and like, why didn't you ask that question? Yeah. Ain't that easy? Because that's the response you'll get. True Geordie can ask them because he doesn't really care. Because if the boxing world don't invite him in again, it's not a problem. If he never interviews Tyson Fury again, never a problem. But for us and for other YouTube channels, even broadcasters, if you push some of these fighters like that, that's kind of the response you're going to get. So it's a fine balance, whereas True Geordie was asking, I thought, fair questions. He spoke about him. He gave him plaudits. You're the best heavyweight in the world. Why are you fighting Chisora? That's a fair question. So, and some people have said, I've seen some people say, oh, maybe he shouldn't have started with the KSI thing. Well, he can start wherever he wants to start. Yeah. And yeah, that's Fury. I've interviewed Fury sometimes and he's been fantastic to me. But I've seen other interviews with him and it's like, oh, that's a bit of Fury though, isn't it? That's kind of who we've accepted. It can go really good and it can go really bad, and that went really bad. But I think it's good that people saw it, so people now can have a bit more respect for what you do, because I think they think what you do is easy, and they ask, why don't you ask those tough questions? If you ask those tough questions, you might not get an interview again. So it's a fine balance. I think that's why you do it so well.
A final question. Is the criticism of that fight fair, given the fact that maybe the other fighters in the rankings don't quite have the profile of Chisora? We know Chisora as well has been in some tough, hard fights, and we've seen that fight twice before. But is the criticism fair, or do you think otherwise?
No, it's fair. It's fair. I mean, Tyson Fury is the number one heavyweight on the planet. Derek Chisora probably top 15, maybe. I know he's coming off a good win against Kubrat Pulev, but look, Fury's got an inbuilt excuse. The inbuilt excuse will be, I tried to get Usyk. Usyk said next year. Tried to get AJ, that broke down. So to be fair, he has tried to get the number one and the number two next guys down. The problem is, you've got number one, number two, then you've got number 15 or number 16, whatever you want. So there are other guys in between, but it's not just about a name, is it? It's about who can put bums on seats. Chisora can do that. And to be fair to Chisora, he's going to come to fight. He's going to come and he's going to have a go. And for a lot of people that are getting angry, I think people need to look in their history. Like, some of the best heavyweights in the world did fight shit fighters. Like, we almost make it like the 80s and the 70s and 60s where they fought great versus great all the time. No. Everyone had a gimme. And maybe this is his gimme. But I think Chisora will do a lot better than Dillian White did. Trust me, I don't think it's going to go like that. I expect Fury to knock him out, but Chisora's going to give it everything. But at the same time, you're the WBC lineal heavyweight champion. We as fans just expect a bit more. That's all we're asking for.
Ade, pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for speaking to Seconds Out. Catch up in the week.
Cheers, brother.